Welcome, Senator. The news that the government would restore full legal status to First Nations women and their descendants born prior to 1985 was announced in the Senate. What would this amendment mean to First Nations women and their families?
Well, what it will mean mostly is it's removing, as far as we know, all the known female sex discrimination in the Indian Act, and it's backdating it to include people that were cut off because of the date of 1951.
Senator, this has been a bit of a contentious issue. Will you be encouraging your fellow senators to pass this now?
Definitely. I think the government, when we initially in June, the government had really stripped out of the bill any possibility of there being that sort of amendment, and what they brought back to us was quite narrow. Since June, they now have come back to us with a bill that includes the pre-1951 group. It's in the bill, and it actually hasn't been proclaimed in law yet. And that coming into force of the law, or the proclamation of the law, will be at a later date. However, the Senate itself will be receiving regular reports on the consultation and how the discussions are going with regard to funding and so on. So the Senate will play a big role in ensuring that that section actually does get proclaimed into law.
Have you any concerns with the timelines around that?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by the timelines.
Just that, the government says that provisions of Bill S3 will come into effect immediately after it becomes law, but the clause dealing with the 1951 cutoff date will be brought in after consultations that begin next year.
Right. Well, of course, I'm concerned that it's two separate dates. It would have been, in an ideal world, we would have had both parts of the bill proclaimed at the same time. That would have been the ideal situation. But as I said before, what we started with was none of that, essentially, and now we've been able to proclaim one section of the bill and the other section comes in at a later date. And I do believe that the reporting and the consultations within the bill are sufficient that the Senate will ensure that it doesn't get forgotten. There have been other cases in the past where there's what could be called a delayed implementation, and that has come forward. I can't give you the exact details right now, but I know it has worked in the past. And given the pressure from outside agencies and lobbying by groups such as FAFIA and the Native Women's Association, they will not let this fall off the table, and they will keep us accountable.
Senator, personally, what did it mean to get to this point here with this bill?
Well, personally, I did not expect that we would get to this point, because when we received the message back from the House on June 21st of this year, on National Aboriginal Day, everybody was extremely disappointed that all the work that the Senate had done to ensure that Indian women had equal rights to transmission of their heritage as Indian men, that work was undone. And so we've moved the ball forward a lot. We haven't got it right over the goal line, but we're sitting right at that line. And the Senate is the body that will not forget. There are members of the Aboriginal Peoples Committee, including myself, Senator Sandra Lovelace-Nicholas, and all the other members of the committee, the Deputy Chair, all the other Indigenous senators will ensure that it's not forgotten, and we will keep pushing.
Senator, appreciate you taking the time to speak with us about this today.
You're welcome.